What is up, guys? Welcome back to another vlogtober video. So for today I have an exciting one for you. I realized I have not filmed my September wrap-up yet. So I only read 3 books this month. It was a really busy work month for me. One that I thought I was gonna finish and didn't. I've been listening to the audiobook on and off on my way to work and reading the physical book as well, and that is the Atlas 6. So you will see a full review of this. I'm about halfway through. You'll see a full review of that in October. But for now, I'm going to talk about the 3 that I read, because even though it was not a lot of quantity, it was good quality. That's what matters. I'm trying to tell myself that. I always kind of beat myself up when I don't read like 10 books every month or whatever. But you know, I'm not a full-time YouTuber. I have a full-time job, so this is what I read this month, and I really liked them. And then stay tuned for later in the video. I'm gonna do a big, well, I don't know if it's gonna be big or small yet, but I'm gonna unhaul some books if you are interested in that. I have a bookshelf down in my car. I have to wait for my boyfriend to come and help me drag it up the stairs. So it's gonna stay in my car, I don't know for how long, and I want to get rid of a few things that I have read and know I'm not gonna reread, or bought and just I'm not interested in anymore. So that will be at the end of the video for anyone interested. Alright, so first up is a book I believe you already saw a reading vlog for. If you missed it, I will link it up in the cards. But that is Disorientation by Elaine Shea Joe. I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing her name right. I just looked it up because I'm pretty sure I said it wrong in a previous video, which I hate that I did that. So this was awesome. This was the first book that I read of fall, so I started it, what was that, September 21st, I guess? It was very academic, but I feel like in a really accessible way. It wasn't one of those like pretentious academic books, and it's definitely not dark academia by any means, which I feel like you can probably tell from the cover. I've said before in previous videos, it reminds me a little bit of Clueless or Mean Girls, just because it's so pink and fun. It has some like mystery, spy thriller elements kind of sprinkled in there, and it's about the protagonist Ingrid and something that happens while she is in her 8th and final year, I'm pretty sure, of her dissertation. Something happens and it completely flips her world upside down. It sparks this whole thing. I'm not going to be any more specific because I don't want to give anything away, but it was very good. I gave it a 5 out of 5. The synopsis at the top just says, a Taiwanese American woman's coming of consciousness ignites eye-opening revelations and chaos on a college campus in this outrageously hilarious and startlingly tender debut novel. It's excellent for a debut. The author definitely knows what she's doing. There is a lot of discussion in here around race, gender politics, academia, the pressures that you find yourself feeling whenever you are a student. And I went into like a more in-depth review in my video, but I talk a lot about particularly the Asian female body and the various ways it's been stereotyped throughout history. There is a twist about 100 pages in, and I had guessed something, but the twist was not, my guess was not accurate, which I kind of enjoyed because that way I was actually surprised. I was not satisfied with the ending. It was a very realistic ending, and sometimes I want better things for the characters, and so yeah, it's very much like what probably would actually happen in real life if something like this were to go down. So overall, I loved it. I thought it was a really thoughtful, insightful look into a young Asian American woman's life. As a white woman, there are things that I just don't have to think about, things I've never considered, thoughts I've never thought before, and I felt like not only was this very entertaining, because Ingrid is hilarious, she finds herself in very odd situations. It's very much, I think, kind of supposed to be similar to The Idiot by Elif Batuman, so if you're into that one, you might like this one. I think this one is better, just saying. So I felt like this was a very important book for me to read, just because, you know, it kind of expanded my horizons a little bit, was fun and lighthearted, but at the same time was able to discuss some heavier topics in a way that was like really accessible and fun. Definitely recommend Disorientation. There is a fly in the window and he's driving me insane. Gambo, come eat the fly. Alright, next up is one I also have a reading vlog on. That seems to be a really fun kind of video. It's very prevalent on my channel, I guess because I'm reading anyway, so I might as well film myself doing it, and because my boyfriend loves to fish, I kind of find myself by a creek or a river a lot of the time. So I will link the reading vlog for this up in the cards. But this is Sirens Muses by Antonia Angres. This was another 5 stars. I loved it. Again, kind of an academic setting, except it's a prestigious art school. I believe somewhere on the East Coast, like maybe Virginia, somewhere like that. It's 2011. It's kind of around the time of, I want to say it takes place around the time of Occupy Wall Street, when all that was going down. So it follows 4 main characters. We have Louisa, who's on a scholarship. She's from Louisiana. She's very like kind of small town, paints moody landscapes, is a little bit on the quieter side. And then you have Karina, who is a little bit more brash, in your face, very beautiful and she knows it, is very talented and she knows it. So she's one of those people who kind of has it in the bag. She doesn't even really like need to be going to art school. She just does it because like what else is she gonna do? Then you have Preston, who's another very privileged student at the school. Robert is a sort of temporary like interim professor who's kind of washed up. He's, you know, he made some really famous art years ago, but he's sort of past his prime, and they've invited him just for I think like 1 or 2 years to teach at Wren College of Art. So I love that kind of, again, academic setting. I wouldn't say it's like dark academia. There's not like a murder or anything like that. It's not like The Secret History. Definitely a lot of drama. So the main crux of the plot is all the ways in which these 4 people's lives intertwine. So Louisa and Karina seem to have some sort of thing in between them. Karina and Preston seem to have a thing in between them. Robert and Karina are connected sort of from the past, so it's like a whole interplay of relationships and lives, and it's interesting seeing how it affects their art, like how their relationships with each other shows through in their art. You're kind of watching them float in and out of each other's lives. I know with a lot of books like this where there's not, I feel like there's not like an insane amount of plot, it's very much like character driven. I can find myself getting a little bit bored and being like, oh my gosh, like I don't really care. Like recently I read The Divines by Ellie Eaton. That is another like set in an academic environment, and it's just sort of going through the lives of the characters. That one I was super bored with. I felt like it was like Mean Girls or Gossip Girl. I was kind of bored the whole time. This one was totally different. I was never bored. The writing was really great. The character development was really great. It's definitely a character-driven story. There's also something about books with main characters, or just characters in general, who are doing something creative or artsy that gives me a little bit of life. So if you consider yourself a creative person, or even if you don't, sometimes it's really fun to read about people who are taking risks and on sort of like an artistic endeavor, if you will. People who paint, obviously that's what this one, you can probably tell from the cover, is about. I don't know, there's just something about that makes me that much more interested. It's not like they're studying, you know, old boring manuscripts or something like that. They're actively creating, and so, I don't know, there was something about that I really liked. Again, this one is kind of political, so that's another thing it kind of has in common with Disorientation. There are definitely some political themes in this, for sure. So it's also LGBTQ friendly, if you're wanting to add more books like that to your TBR, so loved this one, 5 out of 5. All right, lastly was Our Crooked Hearts by Melissa Albert. This one has been on my list for, well, I think it just came out recently. This one's not that old, but it's been on my TBR pretty much since it came out. I'm kind of glad that I didn't buy this one physically, like a physical copy of it, because I was at somewhere recently. Oh, I think it was Half Price Books, which I have a vlog of, my So Little Bookstore, So Little Time video. I'm shopping in that store, and I did see a copy of it that day when I was in Half Price Books, but I didn't buy it. I'm kind of glad that I didn't. I wasn't a huge fan of this one. I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. The writing was okay, nothing spectacular, and it felt a little bit like a rehash of The Craft. So if you're a fan of The Craft and you're wanting something that kind of has that vibe, you know, it's like spooky season, it's October, this could totally be a perfect book for you. You may absolutely love it. It very much felt like the remake, you know, more of like a contemporary feel to it. That is pretty much exactly what this felt like. It was a group of girls, they get in over their heads, they don't know what they're doing, they're not using magic properly, and things get kind of crazy. So that is essentially what happened in this one. I'm just gonna reference my handy dandy notebook here. There are some quotes that I wrote down that I really liked. The city opened its doors to me, tapped out its secrets like cigarettes. That's a good line. I do really like that one. This one I really connected with because I'm pretty introverted. That's one of the perils of being quiet. People invent personalities for you. That's very true. Essentially, there are 4 young witches. They're dabbling in magic they don't really understand. And they end up summoning this woman named Astrid, who's a banished witch. And it has to do with a mirror and like another dimension. And I'm not gonna say what goes wrong. Overall, it was just not, I don't know, it didn't give me anything new. It was kind of like, I've read something like that before. I do kind of like the metaphor of like being young, being like a teenager, coming of age, and experiencing all of this newfound power for the first time. And then there is a little bit of interplay with timelines. So one of the characters' moms, you sort of see what was going on with her back then. We don't really get a year, they just say back then. We see what was going on with her at the time and then how it's now influencing the present moment and the daughter's perspective, who is another one that we get to read from. Anyway, those are the 3 that I read. I'm definitely hoping to get a little bit more reading done in October. So now that the reviews are done, let's move on to the unhaul. Alright, so just to remind you guys, this is the current bookshelf situation. I will totally link my bookshelf tour, my original one that I posted a couple of months ago now, up in the cards right here if you're interested. It is obviously overflowing a little bit. I mean, I've managed to make it look somewhat decent just by trying to kind of group them by color, but it's spilling over onto the dressers. So we've got this one there's a couple in here that are actually my boyfriends, like Mark Twain, this Carl Jung book. There's nothing wrong with them being on the dresser, like that's fine, that's whatever, but I feel like it's looking a little bit cluttered because I have some decor sand that I've picked up from different places that I would like to maybe make more of a moment here instead of it just looking so full and so cluttered. So that is the current situation. I don't even know where the new bookshelf is gonna go yet, but yeah, let's get rid of some books. I mean, I obviously just read them this month, so they're not going to get reread anytime soon, but they're really good, so I think I'm going to hang on to those. Okay, I think I have to keep this one, even though I've read it. It's one of the only books, I think, one of the only books that's ever made me cry. I cried at The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. Bawled my eyes out. I was in middle school, it was the whole thing. This is beautiful. This was like happy tears. It's good that I'm doing this because I feel like there are people in my life who I could recommend this book to. It's so beautiful. I have to read a quote. Okay, so basically this guy, Don Miguel Ruiz, he wrote the 4 Agreements books. I don't have the actual 4 Agreements. I have the companion book, which I have never read, and I need to go through and figure out what it is exactly. But in The Mastery of Love, I've just highlighted some parts. He talks about how you are a force, like the thing that animates your body, like whatever we call life. You are a force. Life is not the body, it's not the mind, it's not the soul, it's a force. You are life passing through your body, passing through your mind, passing through your soul. Once you find that out, not with the logic, not with intellect, but because you can feel that life, you find out you're a force that makes the flowers open and close, that makes the hummingbird fly from flower to flower. You find out that you are in every tree, you are in every animal, vegetable, and rock. You are that force that moves the wind and breathes through your body. The whole universe is a living being that is moved by that force, and that is what you are. You are life. Yeah, highly recommend that if you're needing a little bit of positive energy into your life. I really should start reading more personal growth. It's been a minute since I've read a personal growth book, and it always resets my mind. So if you have personal growth recommendations, definitely leave them in the comments. Still haven't read this, but look how, oh, she's dusty. How cool, I should probably block that out. She's naked. How cool is that cover though? It's like vintage Ira Levin. He wrote The Stepford Wives. It's an original 1970 copy. Very cool. This one I'm a little bit torn on. I started this, last fall, last like winter time. And it sounds really fun. It's definitely a summer book. I'll probably hold on to it until next summer. How to Marry Keanu Reeves in 90 Days. He is one of my favorite actors. He's adorable and amazing. He seems like one of those celebrities who's actually a decent human in real life. So, okay, I'll hold on to it. Those are boyfriends, so he reads a lot of like religious stuff. So I will keep these, but they're gonna go, I don't know, somewhere else. I'm officially DNFing this. I'm keeping it, but I'm gonna no longer read it. I can't decide if I love or hate Kerouac because he writes like this. He wrote with no like punctuation or anything. The only reason why there's ever like a comma or period or a paragraph break is if the publisher added it. So that kind of drives me nuts. I kept this because it has my brother's name in the title. And I read it on the road and really liked it, but I think I might have to toss that one.